Right, here we go. Question 5. This one was the question where you're looking at a landscape that is influenced heavily by the tides rolling in and out across the day. So the very first question would have been a process by which the salt marsh community is formed. It describes a complete lack of habitat beforehand. So it literally describes sand and mud, which is bare. It uses the word bare rock. So you'll need to think of primary succession for that one. Then the first organisms that have colonized, you would have the pioneer species, and as a third one you would have the final group of organisms, which once you've got a stable climax community, so that'll be a climax community that has formed once everything that will be living there is living there. Right, they're just keywords, and that is quite brief here. The next one was a question into 3 abiotic factors. So literally 1, 2, 3, you've got your 3 abiotic factors, and use the information given as above. 3 abiotic factors that cause this extreme environment. Now have a look at the text again. What are the abiotic factors? It tells you there's still tidal movement, but little waves. So you still have the tides coming in. What is tides? That's salty water. So how does life cope with salty water? That is an inorganic situation. Salty water means that you've got a negative water potential on the outside potentially, so roots might not be able to absorb water as well as possible. You've got a lack of waves, but because the tides are still moving in and out, that might tear the odd little plant out of the grounds, plants that are not very well rooted. And the third little component you've got here is the addition of nitrates. Because it's agriculture, that means any fertilizer, any manure that's being sprayed onto the field, that will drain through the salt marsh and will be your third factor. For each of them you need to be clear and you need to explain. So let's have a look at the possible mark scheme. It's giving you five different ones, the waterlogging as well. Okay, so the salt content, literally absorption of water will become a problem. Waterlogging of soil, when obviously the tide has come in and water standing there, that means it's stagnant, less oxygen available for respiration in the roots to then take up those salts, which means the whole situation may become toxic. Also bacteria in that soil and marsh might be denitrifying the pseudomonas. The tidal flow, so the drag, the physical drag on the plant, which might cause them to uproot and just be flowing away with into the sea, and out they go. You have sediments, you've got silt and sand and clay, which might be abrasive, like sandpaper or some of your exfoliating skincare, what some people have to kind of rub off the top layer. Also, it could be just literally covering up the leaf, and a layer of mud on top of a leaf means that less photosynthesis takes place. Then as a last one here, that would have been the high nitrates flowing down, particularly during growing season. So that would be particularly late spring and summertime when farmers actually will get all their cow manure onto the fields. Okay, the next part of the question here, it has given you denitrification as a biotic factor, and it's given you a little graph to go with it. The very first question was actually quite simple. Why is it biotic? You need to use the word living. Just telling me that there are bacteria doing it and pseudomonas is lovely, but you do need to have the word biotic goes with living. Underlined, nice and big, needs to be there. Then the follow-on question, and it does, you will maybe have to reread this a little bit, the results of an investigation into denitrification shown in the chart before. You've got the low, high and edge of the marsh, and it also tells you higher in the summer month. Why would it be higher in the summer month? So it doesn't specifically tell you the word temperature, but that's definitely one you need to get in there. What happens better at higher temperatures? Also, what else happens during the summer months? You've got the farmers getting all their manure out, which means there's more nitrates, which means more can be denitrified. So these arguments need to get in there. Two factors. On the one side, you've got the temperature and you've got the nitrates levels higher from the farming runoff. It would also even have accepted that in the summer months, you'd have to link that to more water logging in the summer months, which for some regions in Britain works well because rainfall does increase in some regions. Okay, then this one here, that is literally describing an investigation that we haven't as such practically done yet. I've described it for you in a nutshell, and actually I should try and find a lovely video of a class actually doing that. If we lived by the seashore, then it would be something we could do. Describe a practical method where you could carry out in the salt marsh to investigate a change in vegetation over time. Many have done only one repeat visit to your place. It would need to be over time, a periodic. Let's repeat it every 3 months and go and visit that site again. So step one, you need one particular marked fixed place. However you are going to do that, from the same hill, from the same road, in that angle, putting poles in the ground or whatever you do to have the same site. Cordon it off, make sure you've got quadrats or something else to make sure that you've got the same place. Then map out your species diversity. Not just count plants or count crabs or whatever, count your species diversity. What else is there? Then the repetition on a regular time, again. So let's have a look at that mark scheme here. So mark out a permanent area, a set area, can be a longer transect. Your counting can happen with the use of quadrats. The periodically, please make sure you've got that, because I'm sort of thinking I might have to go back to some of yours and take away a mark when you have said or return in a year. No, it's not periodical, that's 2 repeats. But actually, if you are looking at the change over time, it would be a regularity every 2 months, every 5 weeks, whatever it is you're deciding to do. And again, identifying your species and species diversity. As we're not living right by the seashore, many of us would probably not have thought of this one. If you are investigating anything in a tidal zone, the tide might come in and might actually flood your area that you are on. And people do lose their lives by the sea if tides come in a bit rapidly, and especially if you've got weird weather patterns and storms associated with it. Okay, so that was question 5.